Hello, what is up everyone? My name is Protolink, and in today's video, I am starting a brand new series on a brand new channel. Now, if you are new to my YouTube career, basically I've been making videos on a channel called Glyphic Enigma. It is the company that I have created, and basically I have been making videos on that for a long time, and I think it's time for me to make a personal channel simply for my Minecraft videos. So anyways, today I am starting a brand new series where I talk about 3 very interesting things in Minecraft that a lot of people don't really know how to use. And my goal is to basically help all of you and get you to where you can use it and you do use it. So what are these 3 things I'm talking about? Well, one of them is the command system. Commands are incredibly powerful, and they can basically change your game entirely. Yes, it uses a system that's called cheats. I don't like that word in regards to commands because basically it's a different way of playing. It's not really cheating in air quotes. It's just a different way of playing. And in a lot of ways, commands can enhance your gameplay experience. Now, what do I have in my hand right here? This is a command block, for those of you who don't know. Command blocks are the second thing I'm going to be going into, but on down the line, because the command blocks are actually, they're a little bit more complicated in a lot of ways. So this will be the last thing I talk about regarding all 3. So what is a command block? A command block is basically a block that executes commands, aka these things, which in itself can be extremely powerful because it can do things that players cannot do, like repeating one command every single game tick. And like I said, I'll get in more into command blocks in the future. The third thing that I'm going to go over, oopsie, are structure blocks. And structure blocks, these things are amazing. They're not that difficult to understand, and they're very powerful. Like you can, well, specifically in the Bedrock version, you can use a structure block to copy and paste your base into multiple locations throughout the world. So really it's incredibly powerful, and I am going to go over this second, but first I'm going to be doing a introduction to commands as a whole, and that's what this video is for. So what are commands? Commands are a way for the player to manipulate in-game things that you can't normally manipulate through the use of console commands. And these things can be, as you've seen, to give the player, or any player for that matter, any block in the game, basically. They can commands can also be used for a bunch of other things. This is just an introduction to them. In future videos, there will be, like, I'll go more into depth with each of these commands and whatnot. I'll go over certain commands within an entire video and explain, like, anything you can do with them. And yeah, so in this video, I'm just going to go over what certain commands are. I am going to teach you how to use a couple of them, because a couple of them are super basic, anyone can use them. And I'm going to teach you basically what to expect with every command regarding syntax and whatnot. So right here you have a list of some of the commands. Obviously you can't see all of it because the 3 dots and whatnot, but you have a list of some of the commands, and the ones we're going to focus on, let me see if I can find them, are the give commands, or the give command and the kill command. These 2 right here, give and kill. That's what I'm going to be focusing on in this video. So the first thing that I want to go over is proper command syntax. Now, if you're playing Bedrock version, or even if you're playing the PC version, this is also true. When you open up the console and start typing a command in, it'll pop up with the thing at the bottom, the line at the bottom here. This line right here. This is the syntax line. This basically tells you what you need in order to execute the command properly without the game throwing an error. Now, something to keep in mind for every command, the items within the angle brackets right here, like this, not like this, but like this, the items within these are required items, which means the command will not execute if you don't have these. Let's say I put in /give and then a target. So the target selector is this, and then tried to just do that without the item. It throws an error every single time. So, proper command syntax requires the items within the angle brackets, and then the items within the square brackets here, here, and here. These are optional, so you don't have to fill these in. It's only if you want to, basically. So anyways, for /give, the proper command syntax, as you can see, is give the target, which is basically what you're giving it to, and then the item, which is what is being given. So for now, we're going to ignore these three, especially this one, because, anyways. So the target. So let's go over specific targets. Some of the targets are things that you would think is obvious. So like, let's type in my name here. That's a target. Okay? But if you look here, you'll see this all up here. All of these are very important because these allow you to specify what is being targeted. Not necessarily who, doesn't have to be a player, but what is being targeted. So let's say I wanted to give everyone in the world one stick. I would use /give, and then I would do @A, which is all players. @A allows me to target every single player within the world. If I wanted to do the nearest player, I would use @P, closest player. Obviously, random player, and then @S is for yourself, but that's only within this interface here. I'm gonna specify this right now. Once I get into command blocks, you cannot use @S for command blocks, because otherwise it will treat the command block itself as what is, like, who is being targeted, basically. So it doesn't work properly with command blocks, but in here in the command interface, you can use @S, and that will basically, that'll do it, it'll give you, and only you, a command block. Also, alternatively, in that same scenario, if you were in a world filled with players and you were in the command interface and you use @P, that would also work, and that would also give you command block. So, or just whatever you're giving. It doesn't have to be any particular block. So anyways, so let's say I wanted to give the closest player, @P, a stick. That's basically all there is to it. Give @P stick. Now you'll notice that when you start to type in item names, or even beforehand, you'll get a list of all the items in the game. This is very important, but you can also reference it by starting to type other things. Like, let's say I wanted to type something that did not start with a B. Started with like a C or something. All I'd have to do is type C, and then up here at the top you can see a list of all the things that starts with a C in order all the way down the list. Now this isn't all of them, but you get the point. Basically, it starts with cactus up here, and then it goes down beyond cooked chicken down here. So this is all the items that start with a C. Now let's start with, let's say, a T, for example. In this case, it'll start with the items that begin with a T, as you can see here, but once it runs through all those, it will go through every item in order that contains a T. So like Acacia Button has 2 T's, right? Acacia Fence Gate has 1 T at the end. So it'll go through every item that has a T after every item that starts with a T. So that's basically something to look out for, and using that method you can basically search for any item in the game, any item on this list. So let's say I wanted to give myself, hold on, what's a good one here? A shulker box. shulker underscore box, and that's it. Now, here is another thing. Some items contain an underscore, others do not. As a rule of thumb, this does not always happen, but as a rule of thumb, every item name that contains a space, always replace that space with an underscore. And that underscore basically takes the place of the space, but it also allows the game to know which item you want to give, basically. Because without the space, like if you put a space here instead of a underscore, shulker box, obviously it's not going to work. That treats both of these, both shulker and box, as two separate things, and it basically throws an error. So if I do that, as you can see, syntax error, unexpected, shulker at, the location, whatever. So always make sure you are putting in an underscore where it is needed. And there's my shulker box. Okay, so moving on. There are multiple ways that you can select your target. So let me go ahead and get rid of this shulker box here. Another way you can select your target is by entity. And let me just show you how to do that now. First, it starts off by typing @E, which is all entities, but you can take it further than that. And this is where the target selectors become very, very valuable. Please pay attention on this part. You're not going to want to miss anything. Okay? /give @E, open square bracket. Now, all of these are specifiers. They allow you to select specific targets throughout the world, and all of them are extremely powerful. I want to go down the list. Now, some of these I don't even know, so I want to skip those, but other ones I do, and I'm going to go over them shortly. So, C is basically a limit. If you type in C equals 10, it will, if I remember correctly anyway, it will target anything with within the specific target selector only up to 10 times, only up to like the number of 10. So let's say you wanted to target exactly 10 random players in your world, but no more than 10. You would do @R C equals 10, and then it would target exactly 10 players throughout your world. DX, DY, and DZ are area specifiers, so it's a little hard to explain, but bear with me. They can be used to check for a player within a radius of a specific area. So like if you use DX equals 5, it will check for anyone within the radius of 5 from the point at which it was the command was executed. So for example, it will check in a straight line 5 blocks. They are basically used to narrow down the radius without using an actual spherical radius. That's basically the best way I can describe it. For more information, you can always look at the wiki, but that's basically in a nutshell what it does. L is level, but here's the important thing, because lowercase L's are checking for experience, uppercase L's check for experience levels. And the difference there is, if you've ever played in-game, which I'm sure you have, the experience bar in survival mode, the green thing, it goes up with lowercase l, but the experience number in between your health and armor, that goes up with uppercase L. So it's kind of important to remember which one is which. LM here is the same, except it checks for the bottom. So it's basically the minimum level that you can have. Using both of these, you can specify a command to run between 2 different levels. Let's say you wanted to give a player a stick, but only give them a stick if they're between levels 3 and 5. So you would specify standard L, or uppercase L, is equal to 5, and then LM, again, uppercase L and then M, equals 3. So that is basically how they work. M is basically game mode, so you can use this to check what game mode someone is in. Name checks for entity names. Players are all entities, so you can use this to check for players as well. R is radius, circular radius around the command's execution point. RM is minimal radius. So for R, you can specify something to happen within a certain radius, but with RM, you can specify something to happen outside of a certain radius. That's basically the difference. RX, RXM, RY, and RYM, I have no idea what those do yet, so I'm going to skip them for now. If they're important enough, I will make a video at some point in the future going over them. Scores, I know what this does in PC version, in Java edition, but on Bedrock edition, honestly, I don't know how to use it properly yet, so I'm going to skip that one as well. But the basic idea of scores is that you can check the scoreboard for things, which I'll go over the scoreboard in a later video anyway. Tag allows you to check for any entity which you have tagged with a certain thing. This basically allows you to tag, well, any entity, including players, with a specific tag, and then using this allows you to check for that. Type allows you to check for entity type, so at E, I can specify type equals player, and that will target any entity of type player, which is a long and kind of boring way of saying at A, but in the olden days, at A didn't even exist, so that's how you would have to do it. So anyways, and then X, Y, and Z are literal location selectors. So like you can check specific coordinates with X, Y, and Z. So those are all the target selectors here. I'm now going to use one to basically show you what they do. And I'm going to do M equals creative. I think that'll work. Pretty sure. I've never used M before, so. Okay, and then stick. So, another thing to note, when you're using target selectors like this, the brackets right here, the square brackets, have to go against the target selector. That's number one. And number two, you cannot have any spaces within the brackets. There is an exception to this, however, when doing name. Oh, and also multiple target selectors are separated by a comma. So that's another thing. Anyways, so when you do name, you have to specify a string, which if you're not in programming, a string is basically a section of text that is separated in, or it's a section of text contained within two quotation marks that is used by the engine to determine, stuff. So in this case, there's my two quotation marks, and I'm just going to do my name. Why not? So this right here is a string, my name here. You can specify anything in here, but if it is within a string, you can do spaces like this. Blah, so it'll search for anyone whose name is Protolink blah. Anyways, so you can specify spaces within strings, but otherwise no spaces. And then, like I said, I'll go over the rest of these here in a minute. So /give at E. Let's go ahead and read this out like you would normally read it. So basically, this is telling the game to give a stick to any entity who is in creative whose name is Protolink. So that will well, that should have worked. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. because I can... Up. There we go. So... Oh, I know what happened. For this specifically, for at E specifically, you can't check for anyone whose name is Protolink. But anyways, normally this would work. So let me just go ahead and do this. Actually, it might be because of the M, come to think of it. Anyways, let me just change the target selector to @P. So here's this. Let's go ahead and run that, and it gives me a stick. Now let's say I change my game mode. Hang on a second. To survival, which you can abbreviate with an S in this version. Now, if I ran the same command, this one, it doesn't give me another stick. It just has a single stick, and that's it. So that's basically how to use the give command. The rest of these are amount, data, and components. I'm not going to go over components. That's advanced. So I'll probably go over that in a future video or something. So anyways, amount is simply how much of the thing you're giving the player. So let's give me 10 sticks. Data is what type of the block you're giving to the player is the block. So that didn't come out right. So basically, what data is if you're giving the player concrete, for example, the data is the color of the concrete. In order to specify any concrete, in this case, using 0 or actually -1 might actually work. So let me go ahead and do that. Concrete amount, we'll give 10, and then data, let me do -1, see if that works. -1 normally in code is, it returns default. So -1 in this case might give me white concrete, or it might give me a block called concrete that looks white, which yes, there is a difference. So, okay, so -1 in this case is too small. So let me go ahead and bring this back up here. In most cases, 0 is sufficient for this, so keep that in mind. And that gives me white concrete. Keep in mind this is not concrete powder, this is actual concrete. So anyways, that is the give command in a nutshell. Well, not really in a nutshell, but you get the point. Kill works in much the same way. So kill, and then target. This one actually might have been easier to go over first, but oh well. The target works exactly like the other thing. So if I wanted to kill, like every sheep in the world, for example, you know what? Let's do creepers. If I wanted to kill all the creepers in the world, I would do @E type equals creeper, and that will kill all the creepers. Of course, there's no creepers in my world right now, but if I were to summon some, which actually I can do this. That's a slime. There's a creeper. Anyways, if I were to summon some, as you can see, there's a lot, and then ran this command, all of these will die. So that is the kill command. Now, something that is very important to note, make sure that if you do not want to kill your player, you use a specific target selector. And this is the reason I saved this for last, because if you do /kill and only /kill, the game's making a fool out of me. So anyways, normally if you only did /kill, it would kill your player as well as every entity in the world. So I'm glad that they actually added an error out for this version, because otherwise it would have killed me. And that was the point that I was getting. That's the point that I was getting across. Now also, if I kill all entities, that should also kill me. Huh. Well. they actually changed that, apparently. So that, in a nutshell, is how to use the kill command. So that is pretty much it for this video. If you liked what you watched and you want to see more, then please subscribe, share the video with your friends, and I guess I'll see you in the next video.